thanks for joining us today. I'm Allison Watkins. I'm the County Horticulture Extension Agent for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. And this is my coworker, Courtney Redmond. She's a Family and Community Health Agent. We're in Tom Green County, that's San Angelo, Texas, out in the West Texas area. So we're joining you from my backyard. We're talking about incorporating edibles into your earth-kind landscape. Yep. And so I have a pretty small backyard, but I like to incorporate fruits and vegetables and herbs into it. So even in a small yard, it can totally be done. So that's what we're going to talk to you today about. So,
yep. And you know, I love looking at your yard. You've got so many different things in it. You know, you've got your vegetables and you've got your herbs, and it's so good to just step out that back door and come back here and, you know, harvest for different types of recipes. You know, it saves trips to the store. That's a big thing right now, you know, with the COVID. So that makes it really simple. And it also helps with your pocketbook, you know, and it incorporates family activity as well.
Yeah, I love just being able to go out and grab something. It's so nice, for sure. Yeah, so what is edible landscaping? You know, it's not a new thing exactly. It's our grandparents definitely grew their own food. We know that.
They did, and they did a lot of canning too.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm seeing a lot of people can these days.
Yeah. So what's new about edible landscaping is that it's incorporating it all together. So instead of how I think it kind of used to be more separate, like it was one or the other. So, you know, it was more like you had your lawn, your shrubs, your flowers, and then if you had a garden, it was just like a separate garden. Mm-hmm. If you had a garden, you know, recent generations haven't been doing as much gardening until now. It's a bigger thing now.
It is.
But with edible landscaping, it's more about incorporating it all together. So fruits and vegetables and herbs, they can be beautiful just incorporated into your landscape. It doesn't have to be a separate thing. So you can incorporate your vegetables and your herbs into your flower beds and with your shrubs and just put it all together.
It's so colorful too. It's beautiful with all the different vegetables and the flowering, you know.
Yeah, it's so nice to just mix it together. So it doesn't have to be separate. If you want it to be a totally separate garden, that's great, but it doesn't have to be. So let's just start out with the foundation, good plant selection. If you want to be successful with growing your own food, start with good plant selection. So we want to encourage you all to have an earth-kind edible landscape. So just as a side note, earth-kind landscaping is all about reducing pesticide use, reducing fertilizer use, less water, so promoting water conservation, reducing waste going into landfills, so composting your yard waste, things like that. So you can visit the website earthkind.tamu.edu for more information on that. Great resource. But a big part of that is just good plant selection. Choose the plants that don't need all of that. They don't need a bunch of pesticides or water or fertilizer. So just some of my personal favorites. Let's just talk about, you know, what I like out here in West Texas that don't need a lot of that. So just starting out with the herbs. Herbs are great. They're so useful, and a lot of herbs are pretty easy to grow in hot Texas weather. So some of the more permanent herbs that are evergreen or perennial that do really well that I like would be things like rosemary. You've got sage, lemon verbena, just a few. There's so many.
Cilantro.
Yeah, cilantro and basil and parsley, things like that. Those are annuals, so you have to replant them, but they're so useful, delicious. I always have basil. I actually have like 3 or 4 types of basil right now in my yard. I love to have basil. Always have to have it.
I love incorporating that into my recipes too.
Just like a caprese plate.
Yes.
So good.
Oh, so yummy.
So then vegetables. You know, let's move on to some vegetables. You know, you might not consider them ornamental, but they can be very beautiful. So you can incorporate, you know, peppers and eggplants. Those can be beautiful and colorful. Tomatoes, bright pop of color. Incorporate those into your flower beds. Artichoke can be a really interesting plant to look at. Sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are really cool.
I love sweet potatoes.
They're great in the heat.
So good for you too.
Yeah, they do great in the heat. Beautiful vine. So even winter vegetables are especially good for landscape design. Swiss chard, you know, cabbage and kale, all of those winter annuals, delicious, healthy, beautiful for the winter. So incorporate those into your flower beds, into your patio, into your container.
You know, it makes it interesting, especially whenever they bloom at different times, you know, for meal planning, you know, so the kids can help with meal planning on what has, you know, has grown here in the garden. So
great to get your kids involved.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so I think studies have shown that if the kids that don't eat a lot of vegetables, if they help to grow, they will be more likely to eat healthy food.
Yeah, and they can be out in the sun, getting some vitamin D and working, and they really, you know, put some ownership into it. So they'll more likely taste it that way.
Yeah, it's awesome. So let's moving on, a little bit bigger plant. So something maybe a little more unusual, you might consider as a shrub, a bay laurel. If you like making homemade tomato sauce or anything that you like to use bay leaves in, grow your own bay laurel plant. I have one, have enough bay leaves to last me as many as I would ever need. So it's a nice big shrub, and you know, you don't need a lot of bay leaves at once, so I've got a lot. I like to tell my neighbors, my friends, if you ever need bay, don't go to the store, just come get them off a plant. So it's fun to have. And so bay laurel is it's a large shrub, it's evergreen. Cold hardiness would be the main issue. Here in San Angelo, it does okay. We've had some really cold snaps, but it's been fine. But if you're further north, it might cold might be an issue for you there. But it's a fun one to have. Then moving on to trees, so fruits. There's really great fruits that we can grow. So
yes,
pomegranate. Oh yeah, plums. Plums, peaches, pears, apples. Beautiful small trees, beautiful blooms in the springtime, pop of color in the spring, nice ornamental small trees. They give you fruit. Yeah. Can't go wrong. Figs, blackberries, grapes. Grapes are a good one. There are some other videos that have been done here in Aggie Horticulture about growing grapes. Really good videos there. If you have an arbor in your landscape, champanelle is a really good arbor grape. And also fruit, pomegranate. Yes, my favorite.
My favorite too.
It's my favorite to recommend for people to grow as a homeowner because it's just an easy to grow fruit crop.
Yeah, and it's super healthy for you too. You know, that deep red and the flowering, you know, the yellow flowers that it makes. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about, you know, a few specific plants here shortly, but just want to encourage safety. Like, let's make safety a priority. We're talking about things we're going to be eating.
Yes.
So when we're talking about edible landscaping, make sure that you're treating your landscape in a safe way. So with Earthkind, we want to encourage you to just, you know, try not use pesticides at all if possible. But if you do use pesticides, use the least toxic option as possible, and always follow the label exactly. And so if you are going to use any pesticide, you have to make sure that it's labeled as safe for that edible crop. Yep. And make sure that you're not using something nearby that's not safe for eating that's going to get onto your edible crop. Yeah. So be very conscientious about any kind of pesticides that you're using in your yard if you are incorporating edibles into your landscape.
Yeah, and it's all about safety, food safety, you know. Make sure that you, whenever you do harvest it, rinse them off with cold running water. Take your vegetable brush and brush it off, you know, prior to putting it in any dishes. You know, we just don't know what is, you know, out here. You know, maybe a pesticide has been sprayed on it, or you've got some insects or something, but make sure you just wash it off, you know, with cool running water, and, you know, scrub it with that vegetable brush before you use it in a dish.
All right, so let's focus in on a few of these edible landscape crops. So pomegranate, like I said, it's one of my favorites to...
Mine too.
It's one of my favorites to eat and one of my favorites to recommend to people to grow. So it is great for hot, dry weather. Yes. It's great for a hot, dry, Mediterranean type climate. So it does really well out here. It's really good for an Earthkind landscape because it doesn't need a lot of pesticides. It doesn't have that many pest problems. It doesn't need a ton of water. It's fairly drought tolerant. I mean, it will produce fruit better if you do irrigate it regularly, but it's not a huge water hog. Doesn't need a ton of fertilizer. So it's a really good choice to have as an earth kind edible landscape plant.
It's great for you too. It provides antioxidants, you know, for your body. So that deep red color whenever it's ripe, you can tell the outsides of the shell is sort of soft. It sort of starts looking a little square, but just feel of it. If it's a little soft, it's ready to go because you've got that deep red tint to it. But it does have a tart taste. I like to put it in different salads. I like to just eat it by itself as a snack. So they're good for you, and I love the plant, love to look at it too.
Yeah, beautiful orange, just gorgeous orange flowers throughout the summer, and then in the fall, the fruit's ready in the fall. In the fall, wait till it's fully mature. So delicious, and yeah, that deep red color. So when you're the nutrition expert, tell me if this is true. I was taught that the more intense the color, the more nutrients there are.
The deeper it is.
Phytonutrients, vitamins.
Yeah.
So
like I said, great antioxidants.
I was at work. I was in the office once cutting open pomegranate, and man, that just went everywhere. It looked like I was like killing something.
It can stain, so make sure that you have if you're going to get it on your clothes, make sure you have an apron or something on, because it can stain your clothes easily. It
can be a little tricky getting all that fruit out, but it really is worth it.
It really is, and if you harvest them and you don't want to use them right away, they will last up to 3 months.
Hey, that's awesome.
But if you do open it up, make sure that you use the seeds within 5 days. So, make sure you put it in your fridge.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, so super delicious, beautiful landscape plant, pretty easy to grow. They're considered a small tree, but they're very bushy. You could train it into a tree shape, but really it's easiest just to let them be a big bush, be multi-trunk. So moving on, the next one of my personal favorites is asparagus. I have some asparagus here at my back fence line. So I always like to preface asparagus with saying that you need a bit of patience to get asparagus going. Now, I love asparagus because it is a permanent addition to your landscape. It's a perennial vegetable. Unlike most of our other vegetables, it's it's not gonna have to be replanted every single year. So I love perennial vegetables like elephant garlic and walking onions, things that stick around. I don't have to replant. I love those.
Oh, yes.
So I love asparagus, but you do need some patience. So your best bet for getting it going, purchase 2-year-old crowns from a nursery or a garden center, and then plant them in around January is a good time to get them going. Plant them in January. Just as a funny side note, sorry Dad, I have a funny story. My mom asked my dad to plant some asparagus, and he planted the crowns upside down. And they just didn't grow for the longest time, and then she noticed, and she's like, what's going on? And then he just turned them upside down and they grew. Gardening can be very forgiving. So if at first you don't succeed, just try again. Keep trying. When I tell people what I do, introduce myself to someone new, they're like, oh, I have a brown thumb, I can't keep plants alive. Well, just as a secret, horticulturists kill plants too. So I lose plants too. It's okay. Just keep trying.
Yeah. They'll eventually grow.
Just keep trying. Learn as you go. But asparagus is pretty easy to grow. It's really great. It's salt tolerant. It's great earth kind crop because it doesn't need a lot of pesticides. It just doesn't need a lot. It just needs time. So plant 2-year-old crowns and then let it grow for a year or 2 without harvesting it. That's where the patience comes in. Just don't harvest it for a couple of years and let it build up a good root system. If you harvest it too soon, it's just not going to get well established, and it's not going to you're just not going to have a good stand of it.
I just really love asparagus. Of course, you want to harvest it whenever it's fresh, right out of the yard. Just cut the stalk off, and then whenever there's a softer end to it, so you just sort of, it'll break, where it's supposed to break. So there's going to be a harder end to it keep that. Don't throw it away. Use it in a stock or a stew, so you're still getting them nutrients from that end of it. And then the other end, I like to take it and dress it with some olive oil, some lemon juice, and salt and pepper.
Yum.
You know, and if you don't have lemon juice, you can use lemon verbena, the herb. So you can use that from your garden too. Hopefully you got that. But if you're not going to use it right away, take it and put it in a glass of a water, about 1 inch of water, and stalks down, and put it in the refrigerator. Utilize it within a couple of days if you're not going to use it right then. But love it. It does provide vitamin A and C, great antioxidant plant as well.
And it really does taste so much better from your garden, more than the store.
It really does.
Okay, so last on our list today is the lemon verbena.
Yeah.
So, it's just one of my absolute favorite herbs. Love lemon verbena. It's such a sweet, sweet lemon herb. Oh, smells so good, tastes so good.
It is. It's so pungent with that lemon smell and flavor too. So you can incorporate that into all kinds of different dishes. Like I said, intermix that if you don't have any lemon or lemon zest in your home.
There's a lot of great lemon herbs, but I like this one the most because it's such a sweet lemon, whereas some lemon herbs get a little bit more on the lemon cleaner kind of a smell, but this one is super sweet, and it's just great. I love it. It's so depending on where you live, it's going to affect how big it gets, the life cycle. If you live up north, it's going to be more of a perennial, die down to the ground. Here in San Angelo, for me, it's more deciduous. It just kind of goes dormant, but it re-leaves out. It's about 3-4 feet tall and wide. But if you live in a tropical climate, it's going to be more evergreen. Might even get to be 10 feet tall. Just depends on where you live as to how it grows. But it's pretty easy to grow. Just give it full sun. Put in lots of compost in the ground. Incorporate compost because it does like well-drained soil. It doesn't like heavy, poorly drained soil. So just incorporate compost when you plant it and give it full sun. It's a tough plant. I don't really do anything to mine, and I love the smell and the flavor.
Yep. Take it, chop it up. You can even make lemonade with it.
So useful. Useful.
It is. It's good.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us today. That was just a very brief overview of a few things that you can do. There's so much more that you can grow. Some of you probably are growing all of these and more. So, we just want to encourage you to try something new. Add a new fruit or a vegetable or an herb. And if you don't grow any food, try something. Just give it a try. It's totally worth it.
Get out there with your family.
Growing it yourself is worth it. You of course you can go to the store and buy it, but there's just such a special satisfaction that comes from growing it yourself. It just seems to taste better, and you enjoy it so much more when you can grow it yourself, serve it to your family, share it with friends. You're getting something really healthy, and you know exactly where it came from.
Exactly. And if there's an overabundance of it, you can always can or freeze it. Just make sure that you use, tested recipes.
Right, yeah. Tested recipes. Make sure you're using a safe canning recipe for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Good luck.